The problem with Chiefs is that we're chasing ghosts. The problem with Chiefs is that we're allowing this idea of Chiefs club culture or Chiefs culture or Chiefs style of play or Chiefs this to cloud the fact that this team is not quite there. And also, just by the way, Real Madrid just so happen to have those three guys, Vinny, Jude, and Mbappe. That is going to be a very tough night for the Gunners. The coach needs to be given all of the reins and the backing in order for them to do well. And the worrying pattern that we see in South African football is that our local coaches are only trusted to a point. Coach Nebi is coaching for his life. Doesn't have time to grow Mfundo Vilakazi, Abo Zwane, Abo Shabalala and hold their hands. He doesn't have that luxury. Welcome everybody to the George Mokoena podcast. My name is George Mokoena. I am your host, and this of course is a place where we can take some of the burning topics in football, put them down and speak openly and honestly about them in the hopes that we can spark some conversations, whether it be in the comments, whether it be in your WhatsApp groups, and whether it be in real life. So if you could please do me the favor of liking, commenting, sharing and subscribing so we can grow this platform to as big as it can be. Now, this episode we're going to be speaking about Kaizer Chiefs and how sometimes this Kaizer Chiefs culture may be actually killing the team. And then we'll touch on Jose Riveiro leaving Orlando Pirates and what that means in the grander scheme of the league. But first, this episode is brought to you in part by our friends at Lay's. Lay's is doing some incredible things, guys. Not only are they bringing back some great legends, but they're also bringing back some great flavors, which is something I'm going to get into a little bit later. But the most important thing is that they want to give you a chance to win some tickets to the UEFA Champions League final. But before you get to a final, there is a little bit of a road. And this week, we have the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League. And let's talk a little bit about those games and what we might see before getting into the big talk. If there's one team in the Champions League that has some big motivation to try and make it to the final, it has to be Bayern Munich. The final, of course, is going to be held at the Allianz Arena. Top that with rumors of Harry Kane wanting to leave, it seems like this seems to be a last dance scenario for Bayern Munich to go out and win the Champions League. They're facing an Inter team that is currently top of Serie A. They're in the semi-finals of the Coppa Italia and they'll be looking to beat Bayern Munich so that they can make it into the final and hopefully relive the treble dreams of the 2009-10 team. This of course is going to be a very close game and I think that Bayern Munich is going to take this one 1-0, seeing as they are the home team. You know, ever since the megastars left PSG, it seems like that team is shining a lot more and finding a lot more teamwork amongst themselves. One of the new star players of that team is Dembele, who couldn't really get up the hill over the past few seasons, but has been shining up to this point. PSG will fancy themselves the favorites when they take on Champions League newcomers Aston Villa, a team that has made it up to this point against all odds. But it's not a team that doesn't have Champions League experience because Rashford is leading the line as well as Asensio. And not only do they have that, but Unai Emery has 3 Europa Leagues in his pocket. So if there's any coach left that knows how to win a continental football, it has to be Unai Emery. This is going to be a great game, but I still foresee a 2-0 win for PSG. Another almost league campaign for Arsenal means that the Gunners only have the UEFA Champions League left as a realistic trophy for this year. And they'll be buoyed by a returning star boy Bukayo Saka, who made his way back from injury and scored on his first game back. That is going to mean so much for Arsenal. But the problem is that their strongest attribute, which is their defense, just so happened to lose out on star defender Gabriel, who went down injured just last week, meaning that they're going to have to go into this game with a bunch of injuries across the line and people like Merino having to pick up the weight for the Gunners. And that's going to be very hard because they'll be taking on a Real Madrid that is suffering a little bit in the league, so there might be some light at the end of the tunnel. But the truth of the matter is that not only is Real Madrid the most pedigreed team in this Champions League, they also have a coach that has won it the most times. And also, just by the way, Real Madrid just so happen to have those 3 guys, Vinny, Jude and Mbappe. That is going to be a very tough night for the Gunners, but I still foresee a 1-1 draw at home in London. Top of La Liga, Barcelona seem to be one of the strongest teams left in the Champions League this year. They've got so many players that are playing out of their skins. Just a couple of years ago, Rafinha was a write-off, and now he's one of the lead players in that team. They've got the young exuberance of Lamine Yamal, and then of course they cap it off with some experience from Lewandowski, who seems to be finding the net often. And you would think that they would continue because Dortmund is lying 8th in the Bundesliga. But you can't take any team lightly at this stage of the Champions League. And we know that sometimes form does not matter. But with that being said, I still believe Barcelona is going to win 3-0. And that, of course, was your Champions League preview, brought to you in part by our friends at Lay's. You know, I can't think of a better way to experience some of that legendary Champions League action than with a packet of Lay's in my hands. And not just any of those ordinary but still so tasty and delicious flavors, but a legendary pack, because not only has Lay's brought back the legends of our game, Lionel Messi and Lucas Radebe, but they've also listened and brought back some of those flavors that we've loved and craved and just weren't around. I'm talking Argentinian creamy pepper steak and of course sour cream and onion. It's true, South Africa, it's back. And on top of that, Lay's is giving you a chance to win some incredible prizes. I'm talking Take-A-Lot vouchers, I'm talking flat screen TVs, and of course the ultimate prize, tickets to the Champions League final. We are the champions, the champions. Not my finest hour. All you have to do to win is to buy one of the returning flavors, scan and stand a chance to win. It really is that simple. The more you buy, the higher up on the leaderboard you are, and the closer you are to smelling some of that Bayern Munich air at the Allianz Arena. So hurry up, go and get yourself a packet right now. And remember, no Lay's, no game. And as always, T's and C's apply. The problem with Chiefs is that we're chasing ghosts. The problem with Chiefs is that we're allowing this idea of Chiefs club culture or Chiefs culture or Chiefs style of play or Chiefs this to cloud the fact that this team is not quite there. You know, one of the coolest things that I got to do last week with Lay's was to sit down with former Chiefs player, former Bidvest player, former Mamelodi Sundowns player, Jordaan Milford. He hosts his Just a Game podcast. It's a podcast that is incredible. Check it out. It's part of the family of podcasts on the Africa Podcast Network, the network that I'm on, that this show is on. And, you know, he was doing his show and he was interviewing another Chiefs great, Lucas Radebe. Ultimate legend, Leeds legend, Bafana legend, Chiefs legend, as it just legend. And I was watching them speak and I was thinking to myself, how incredible is this? And the stories they were telling and the emotions behind it and, you know, the clarity about things and the way they were going back and forth. I found myself reminiscing about the stories my father used to tell me, about the Chiefs that I remember, about the Chiefs that I used to see. But there was something so interesting that Lucas said in that thing. He said he was only at Chiefs for 2.5 years, which was such an interesting statement because in my head, all of my superstars, the guys that I hold near and dear in my head, are 8-year veterans. And it wasn't until I started doing profiles that I started to realize that these people had not been at the club for as long as my mind was telling me they were. You know, they hadn't been at the club they weren't as impactful as I thought. Like a lot of people don't know that Arthur Zwane played for Pirates at some point. And therein lies the problem. When you're chasing ghosts and you're fighting memories, you're fighting emotions, you're fighting the little that people remember. Guys, I was 12 when Ted Dimitri was doing amazing things, 2003, when Operation Fat Alles, Pat Komafani, and all of that stuff. Now think about what the world was in 2003. The world was, you watched the game, if you didn't have DStv, you couldn't watch all of the games. Number one, you couldn't watch all of the games. You could only watch the select games that won SABC 1 at 3 o'clock and at 8 o'clock. And you couldn't watch everybody. Think about the media. We didn't have 1,000 podcasts breaking down every single move that was happening and every single tactic from every single angle, from everything. And this one's got this opinion and that one's got that opinion and that one's got that opinion. We didn't have that. It was hard enough watching this. We used to have to wait for the newspaper to come out for you to maybe decide what your opinion on something was. That is the context of what we're coming from. So I looked internally. And I thought to myself, this Chiefs that I'm comparing this current Chiefs to, what was that? What is it? What is the truth about it? Because like I said, I was 12. I didn't know football like that. But I knew the feeling. And whenever you've met somebody where you're fighting their feelings, you know how tough it is, because sometimes the truth gets distorted. And if we're going to base our whole idea of this club on some of those distorted views, we're going to harm the club. And when I talk about harming the club with Chiefs specifically, it's that this idea. You know, Coach Nabi says this is a great club. Prapobi, no, Kaizer Jr. and Jess and Dr. Kaizer speak about this great club. And because we are in two minds, we're not in the present. It's either we are thinking forward to trying to get this team back to where it was, or thinking back to where we come from. But the truth is that it's 10 years since the last trophy. And to tell you the truth, it's not the Chiefs of 2003. It's the Chiefs of Baxter, it's the Chiefs of Middendorp, it's the Chiefs of Gavin Hunt in the Champions League that have been the most successful teams that Kaizer Chiefs has had up to this point. But you know what happens? Because we are stuck with that belief of what Chiefs was and is and should be, we're not allowing it to change and grow and develop and be different and maybe find a new way to go. Do you know what I love about Mamelodi Sundowns? I say this all the time. There came a time in Patrice Motsepe's running of the club where he sat down and he said, guys, we've done the extravagant coaching hires. We've done the buying every quality player you can find on the map. Now we need to be realistic to where Sundowns is in comparison to some of the other big teams. In comparison to where Ahly are. And say, okay, that is step 7. What is step 1? And I think bringing in a Coach Pitso was key to the mindset shift of Mamelodi Sundowns, because Coach Pitso had just come from Bafana after a run with Supersport. And I think Coach Pitso, like I always say, was in such a great place where he still knew how to hustle. He still knew how to take a team from 14, relegation candidate, relegation zone, and bring them up to 9. But he was at a place in his career where he could take that 9th place team and win the league the following year, because he had now been exposed to everything that was happening around football, management, psychology, all of those things, and he merged it together. And Sundowns went through a period where they were just serious with it themselves and going, guys, this is what we need to do. As a Shushainen piano prasten. Now this must be a new Shushainen piano that we're going to embrace. 2016, when they win the Champions League, it's not just sexy players. It's not a sexy goalkeeper who plays out from the back. It's a fighter, Onyao. It's not your Mokoenas and all those guys, not to say they're bad players. It's your Hlomphokekanas, it's your Mabundas, it's your Kemang Tete, it's all of these different players that none of you, even some Sundowns fans, even remember them as being legends who won you the Champions League in Kumbula Botoli. But you don't remember the base. And there was a realization that this is what we need to do. And Chiefs is not there. Chiefs is not there. The wildest thing about Chiefs is that if you ask me what Chiefs was, and you just stop 20 random Kaizer Chiefs fans, and you ask them, what is the style of play, what is the culture, you're going to get completely different answers. I can tell you that I don't remember Chiefs having a standout style of play. I remember mercenary coaches arriving, being exposed to some of the quality players that Kaizer Chiefs always had at their disposal, using them however they used them, winning, leaving after 2 years. Do you understand that sometimes our memories are so bad that right now Jose Riveiro has scored the most goals? I believe it is. Opta Chabu said the most goals, 200. They went over 200 goals scored for him at a club, which is more than any other coach apparently. Coach Rulani was breaking record after record after record after record last season with Mamelodi Sundowns. And then you go, hi man, surely these things should have been broken. And similar to the players that you look up and you're like, oh, this guy only played 60 games. Hey man, I thought, how this guy only scored 30 goals. I thought. I mean, right now we've got Bradley Grobler and Peter Shalulile. Well, Peter's closer. He's going to break the record. Grobler's close by. And then you sit back and you go, ow, Mara, they're not Siyabonga Nomvete, man. And maybe in your mind, you look at Siyabonga Nomvete versus Shalulile and you go, ay man, yazupele man, begana raideng. When in actual fact, you're being really unfair. Kaizer Chiefs is at a place where all of us have to be honest. We're so far away removed from whatever Chiefs play is or was according to us. It's not that anymore. We're not there anymore. We're not in Kansas anymore. But if we're going to keep sitting there and pining and crying and wanting, and I remember, and this and that, instead of allowing uncomfortable changes to happen. I know I'm giving Sundowns credit. That was uncomfortable. Pitso was being booed at some point. Patrice Motsepe had to step in and be like, hey. But in order to find your next thing, you can't keep looking back. Imagine if Dr. Ivan Khoza and Dr. Kaizer looked back when breaking away from the NPSL. We wouldn't have the PSL as it is right now, or the NSL all together, but we wouldn't have that. Imagine if they stayed with SABC. We wouldn't have the deals that we have now with Supersport, or the types of monies that can go and pay every single team a monthly grant. And it was probably uncomfortable, and it probably hurt. And you probably had legacy, heritage, culture, past, all of these things to think about. Oh, it's free to air. How are the people going to watch? Look at where we are now. And that is where Chiefs is right now. And it's not going to come down to Coach Nabi. It's not going to come down to Kaizer Jr. on his own, or Bobby on his own, or Jessica on her own, or Kemiso on her own, or Dr. Kaizer on his own, or the fans on their own. Everybody needs to accept it now. You are not that. That is a ghost of the past. And you can't dwell in the past. You are not Sundowns. That is the future. You cannot dwell on the future. You have to start building things now. And this Chiefs culture that nobody really understands, that nobody can really explain, that nobody can... It's holding this team back, and it's unfair. Maybe it doesn't need to be ugly. That's all I'm saying. Okay, so obviously the big story from last week was that it was finally announced that Coach Jose Riveiro is going to be leaving. Now, I'm going to touch on his legacy and maybe the broader impact of what this move does to the league later on. But what I wanted to speak on is a very worrying opinion that I've been hearing. in that, in speaking of who can take over from Jose Riveiro, we've been saying that it can't be a local coach. It has to be another coach that comes from that side or comes from a different place. And it's such an interesting conversation to have, because the conversation starts off from the point of view of, these coaches that come from South Africa are maybe not good enough. The coaches that come from South Africa get caught up in the politics and the drama. They get caught up in the media. And that's what makes them not good enough. They can't withstand the pressure. They're too close to it. And while I do understand that maybe the way a foreigner or somebody who's from outside of the league views Chiefs and views Pirates or views Sundowns may be different to how the guys from here view it, because obviously we've got internal ties. But I don't think these guys are not getting the jobs because they're not good. I don't think that South African coaches are struggling because they're not at a certain level. Abu Siyama were not fired because they were underperforming. Abu Tentens Malisela keep getting calls at the same time to come save the same teams. Now, previously I've spoken about the coaches and how they need to take themselves a little bit seriously. But I want to speak on this thing where we say the coaches are not good enough. Your coach is only as good as how much the team empowers the coach. The coach needs to be given all of the reins and the backing in order for them to do well. And the worrying pattern that we see in South African football is that our local coaches are only trusted to a point. But at some point, you need to back that person fully so that they can go exert whatever they're going to do onto the team. And if you don't have those systems ready and built, and if you're not going to trust them, obviously, bato flop. And when you look at it, and you look at the guys who are brought in, Coach Jose Riveiro, for everything that he did, for as incredible as he's been, was coaching in Finland. None of us watch the Finnish league. None of us know what's happening in Finland right now. We don't even know what team he was coaching, that side. But he came in with that UEFA license, and he came in with the backing of management, and we kind of believed it. When Coach Jose Riveiro arrived here, what did we call him? We called him a plumber. We said that he's plumbing. We said that he's just another foreign coach who's going to come in and whatever. But as it went along, you could see his influence. Now I know Uprasten passed on, rest in peace. But there was a lot of executive changes that were made. And you could see that, okay, Coach Jose Riveiro was being given the keys to the team. How many local coaches have had that chance? Starting from a place where nobody knows them. It's even worse for our coach, CM, our coach Tentens. Coach Tentens won a trophy. But we can't imagine ourselves seeing, or can't imagine Pirates giving Tentens Malisela that job. And to be fair, it's not up to us to see the thing. It's up to the club to back. And the best example of this has to be Coach Pitso. A failed bafana coach. But Lord, it failed. A failed bafana coach. A coach that came from coaching Supersport United. Mid-table team. Sometimes top 8. Not really memorable. When he stepped into those doors, mamelodi Sundowns, there was a lot of doubt from everybody and a lot of noise. And there were times where he needed to be taken out, kama ponisa. We know the stories. But you know what happened? Dr. Motsepe came out and said, guys, this is my guy. I back him. He's mine. I chose him. I interviewed him. He's here for a reason. And I'm not just going to come out and back him with words. I'm going to allow him to change the structure of Sundowns. I'm going to allow him to bring in whoever he needs to bring in, whether it be personnel, whether it be coaches, whether it be whatever. Mangoba Zwagala. Coach Rulani Zwagala. Player Mang, this one, that one. We're going to allow him to come in and be the architect of this new and improved shoe shine and piano, a structure that still exists right now. But it all starts from trust. And it's not that all of them are going to work out. But backing is backing. Talking is talking. You need to come out and back these people fully. So it's not that a local coach cannot coach a PSL giant, cannot step into Pirates right now. Mandla Ncigazi and Fadlu Davis took them to the Confed finals. But it's when that person lands, what type of leeway do they have? If they want their own technical team, can they get it? If they want to make certain signings that maybe we won't understand, can they go and do it? When they stand in front of those players in the change room, is it a situation that I am a coach who knows deep down that when these players decide that the time is up, the time is up? Or am I a coach that can stand in front of them and look them in the eye and say, hey, I'm getting rid of you? Nangunabi. Every day tells us about quality. He doesn't have the quality. He needs to go sign. They need to do all of those things. Why do we accept it when it's him and we don't accept it elsewhere? Why do we accept it when it's him and he's got, the worst record of a Chiefs coach? Including Molefi, including Kevin Johnson, including Atazwani, including, I believe, Gavin Hunt, if not just a little bit worse on the league side of Gavin. In a transfer ban here. Nobody's going, oh yeah, look at those guys. We're all saying, oh, these players are doing whatever. Atazwani finished 5th with a lot of these players. Oh well, the guys that are left from that time. Kevin Johnson, Molefi finished exactly where we are right now. Nobody was calling for them to get their signings. And then you wonder why. So I'm going to end this off by saying, guys, you need to, backing doesn't mean I just talk. And our local coaches are not bad. Look at what they're doing. Benny McCarthy finished 2nd with Amazulu. Fired. Coach Siema took Polokwane City to a top 5 finish. Fired. Then, after he got fired mid-season, went to idiskitv and put them in the same spot. Fired. Coach Atazwani finished 5th. Now he's about to finish, I'd say maybe 5th or 6th with Amazulu after taking them from a 14th place. 13th or 14th place. His contract is going to be up now. It's probably going to be moved on. At what point do they deserve to take the next step? Gavin Hunt has 4 league titles with teams that are not Chiefs, Pirates or Sundowns. With budgets that were not Chiefs, Pirates or Sundowns. They were not Motsepe. They were not Vodacom. They were not any of these big things. Took Chiefs almost to a star. Got fired in the middle of that. No, it's not that our local coaches cannot coach the big teams. It's that the big teams will not respect, will not give backing, will not get behind, will not stand behind our local coaches. That is the problem. And if we don't wake up soon enough, you're going to realize that you're not developing coaches that can coach at the highest level. You don't get Coach Rulani without Coach Pitso. Trusting him. Who knows what happens to Coach Rulani if he doesn't have that backing, that chance, that education. Yet some of our best coaches languish at the mid-table, bottom table. They're saving people from relegation all the time. Instead of maybe being given the opportunity to take their own coaching, their own careers, their own everything to the next level. So no, again, it's not the coaches that are bad. It's the teams that don't back. It's the teams that listen to fans making a noise. Nati, we're a problem because when we see coaches with UEFA licenses, we keep quiet. Give them time. Earned or not earned. But yet when these guys who we've seen in the league do wonders need to step up to the next level, we are the same people who say no. We need to believe in our own and back our own and grow our own. And then you'll see more Rulanis, you'll see more Coach Pitsos, you'll see more Gavin Hans, you'll see more of those people popping up because they're given the opportunity. Where's that coach that was hot 2 years ago? It wasn't Milford, it was one of the other teams. It was hot. Everybody was speaking about him. I can't even remember him. His name. One of the NFD guys. Where is he? How many new coaches are we bringing into the league? Still sticking to Bo and Takama. We still got those guys who, they got their chances. We need to change our outlook so that we can move forward. Jose Riveiro announced this past week that he is leaving Orlando Pirates. This, of course, is not the story that I want to speak about, but I want to mention Coach Jose. Like I mentioned earlier, he's got a couple of records to his name, and he's currently the winningest Pirates coach that there is. He's respected the game. He's brought about the youth. He's showed some balls. He's been an incredible coach to watch. 5 trophies in about 2.5 years. Could be going for the Champions League now. Could be maybe pushing for the league. Could be pushing for his 3rd Nedbank, which is an incredible return for him. But the conversation that I want to have is that the league is in such a scary place. Because in order for you to take risks, in order for Jose to bring in Bogazi, in order for Jose to bring in Kota, Mfuking, Libitso, different young players that have come in, Morasibucha, Moradiopani, to bring in those people, you need to have trust and you need to have experience. And you need a team that is going to let you have that time. But I look across the league now and I wonder who's going to bring in the youth, because it's become a dog-eat-dog world. Every coach is fighting for their jobs. Gavin Hunt, one of the coaches that we all thought job security guaranteed, I know it's bottom of the log, but job security, what, kept bringing people in, kept giving us new stars. Gone. Eric Tinkler, you could argue at Cape Town City, had a similar type of cushy setup. Gone. He's fighting for his life as Kukune. You look at Bo Arthur, you look at Bo Siema, you look at those coaches, they're not even given enough time to develop, which is scary. Because if you want to create more pizzos, you have to trust the guys to build their experience while they are at the clubs. You need to trust them to be able to grow while they are at the clubs. You don't get Sundowns Pitso without the years of Coach Pitso being at Supersport. The transition to Bafana. How many coaches can we point to that are South African that have done that? Yet the only stories we hear is Dance Malisel, fired every year. The only stories we hear is Siema, fired every year. We hear about the 6-month contracts and things like that. How do you create a strong coaching base if in that base you're not allowing these guys to grow, to be able to take risks? Caroso is coaching for his job. You can forget about Litlaku. You can forget about Mabena. You can forget about khoza to a degree. That's why Suarez is trusted. Coach Nebi is coaching for his life. Doesn't have time to grow Mfundo Vilagazi, Abo Zwane, Abo Shabalala and hold their hands. He doesn't have that luxury. And this is now true across the league. Because the only place where maybe you'll find this continuing to happen has to be Stellenbosch. That's possibly the only place. Stellies, Steve Barker, who's been there for a very long time. He can afford to do these things because he got the backing of his team. The noise from outside is low. He's getting results. He got a trophy last season. So he'll be allowed to do that. But we don't have places. I mean, we're crossing fingers and holding thumbs that Coach Mangoba will be given a long tenured stay at Golden Arrows. We're hoping that a bunch of the other coaches, Atazwani, can be given a long stay. But I was genuinely hoping that Coach Jose was going to be the long-term coach that Pirates needed, that Pirates never had. I don't think we've had long-term coaches at our club. In my memory at Kaizer Chiefs, for example, Steve Kompela stayed pretty much the longest, but everybody used to get 2 seasons tops. But if you want to really build something, and change something, look at how long it took Coach Pitso. While he was still apecha bomangoba, apecha Coach Rulani. Coach Rulani doesn't become Coach Rulani because he's just this really great, intelligent guy. He becomes Coach Rulani because he's under the tutelage of somebody and he can slowly build and change and learn and grow under the protection of the club. There's nowhere else where that is going to happen. And that is what truly, it scares me for these DDC kids. 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds who are stuck in DDC, who make the jump and they're not first team ready, who don't have a reserve league, a proper reserve league where they can play PSL level football to get ready. They're sitting in the benches, they're sitting in the stands. And the more and more we lose these coaches who are trusted, the more and more these coaches are not given the chance to do things, problems arise. So I'm really worried about the state of the league. But to Coach Jose, you did an incredible job, sir. Your demeanor, the way you handled the press, the way you handled the pressure, the way you handled everything was incredible. The youth that you've brought in, the trophies that you've won. Proof that maybe you don't need all the time in the world. Proof that maybe some of the other coaches around the league should be looking and saying, okay, maybe I need to put my ego aside. There was a lot of ego being put aside by Coach Jose. From Spain, from development, all of that stuff, UEFA, to sit down and say, as in, let me take some time to understand Dutito, to understand Umfukeng. How do I put them into places where they can win? How do I respect the culture? Incredible, incredible, incredible job by Coach Jose. And you will be missed, sir. The winningest coach in Pirates history. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Remember, Lays still wants to send you to the Champions League final. So, in my description, there's going to be a link that you can click in order to enter. But also remember that you have to buy one or more of the returning flavors of Lays. You'll see them as the packs with the legends on top. We've got sour cream and onion coming back. You've got Argentinian creamy pepper steak. You scan and you stand a chance to win an incredible trip to the UEFA Champions League final. And also there's a chance that you could win take-a-lot vouchers, flat screen TVs, all thanks to our good friends over at Lays. So remember, there will be a link in the description that you click and then you can learn more about the competitions and you can see how you can win. Remember, no Lays, no game. Bye everyone.